Stellar just dropped a bombshell, and almost no one in crypto media is talking about it. While everyone else is chasing meme coins and debating ETF timelines, Stellar made one of the most practical and disruptive moves in crypto utility we've seen in years. A move that could redefine what real-world adoption actually looks like. Here's the headline that should have shaken the entire market, but flew under the radar. AEON Group, one of Southeast Asia's largest crypto payment platforms, has officially partnered with Stellar to deploy XLM and USDC payments across 20 million retail locations. Let that sink in. 20 million physical retail points. We're not talking about another theoretical Web3 use case locked in some white paper. This is live infrastructure rolled out in one of the most populous and mobile-first regions in the world. 600 million people, 10,000 brands, 20 million active QR payment nodes. And now, every single one of those endpoints has the ability to accept Stellar USDC and XLM as native forms of payment. That's not hype, that's hard utility. No pilot phase, no testnet, no coming soon. It's already happening. AEON isn't some tiny startup either. It's a fintech monster. They're embedded across shopping malls, convenience chains, fuel stations, food delivery, e-commerce, you name it. If you've spent time in Malaysia, Thailand, the Philippines, or Vietnam, chances are you've already brushed shoulders with an AEON terminal. And now those terminals run on Stellar. This deal doesn't just put XLM and USDC on the map, it embeds them directly into the payment DNA of an entire regional economy. And here's where it gets wild. AEON's market thrives on QR code-based payments, an ecosystem that skipped debit cards entirely and went straight from cash to mobile. No card swipes, no legacy POS systems, just tap, scan, done. That means this isn't crypto competing with banks. It's crypto replacing them. And Stellar? It just positioned itself as the native settlement rail for a decentralized, mobile-first economy that moves billions daily. This is the kind of leap Ethereum wishes it could pull off without tripping over gas fees. It's what Ripple's chasing through endless legalese and banking partnerships. But Stellar just did it quietly, efficiently, and at scale. It's also a massive win for Stellar's USDC strategy. Remember, Circle's native USDC lives on Stellar too, meaning AEON just opened up a direct consumer highway for programmable dollar payments in Southeast Asia. In other words, the Stellar network is now a payment layer for daily commerce, not just a blockchain for developers and DeFi nerds. This move alone could absorb billions in transaction volume in the next 12 to 24 months. And the more that volume flows through Stellar rails, the stronger the demand case for XLM becomes, not as a speculative asset, but as real digital liquidity moving between people, merchants, and platforms. This is exactly the kind of real-world integration the space has been screaming for, and Stellar just did it while no one was watching. Let me put it like this. When the crypto cycle flips and the world starts chasing actual adoption again, this partnership will be remembered as the inflection point where Stellar went from sleeping giant to retail backbone. So what's the play? Well, before we even touch price charts or long-term accumulation strategies, here's a hard truth. You need to be ahead of these moves, not reacting to them after the pump. That's why being part of this community matters. If you want to stay ahead of the curve on these kinds of real-world crypto breakthroughs, the ones that show up in fundamental adoption long before they hit headlines, you need to be plugged into the right channels. So smash that subscribe button right now, turn on notifications, and join the Be Crypto Smart crew. Because by the time the market catches up to what Stellar just pulled off, the early movers will already be in position. Who are AEON and why this partnership matters? Let's address the elephant in the room. Because if you're just now hearing about AEON, you might be tempted to brush them off. But let me stop you right there. AEON isn't some fringe startup running a Telegram group and dreaming up a token. They are one of the fastest scaling Web3 payment networks in Southeast Asia, and their momentum is very real. Their flagship product, AEON Pay, is already woven deep into the fabric of everyday commerce in Southeast Asia. We're talking real-world payment utility across tens of millions of users. If you're in a country like the Philippines, Malaysia, Vietnam, or Indonesia, AEON Pay is not just an app. It's the app for modern transactions. They're aiming for full-on payments disruption, not just digital convenience, not just adding blockchain to old systems. They're building the rails for a post-banking economy. Think of AEON Pay as the Alipay meet Stripe of emerging markets, but crypto-native from the ground up. Multi-chain support? Check. QR code ubiquity? Already there. Regulatory frameworks? In progress with sandbox testing. Real users? Tens of millions and counting. But here's where things get interesting. With everything AEON has built, why did they choose Stellar as their next strategic infrastructure partner? Simple: performance, stability, and real-world alignment. Let's break that down. Transaction speed that merchants can trust. When you're running millions of payments a day, speed isn't a luxury. It's a requirement. AEON didn't pick Stellar because it's trendy. They picked Stellar because it settles transactions in under 5 seconds. That's end-to-end, no mempool gambling, no network congestion. Just click, confirm, and it's done. For retail environments where delays mean lost customers, that kind of settlement speed is game-changing. Fees so low they're practically invisible. This is where Ethereum and Solana often stumble. On Stellar, payments cost a fraction of a cent, literally around $0.00001. That means microtransactions actually make sense. Whether you're buying a bottle of water, splitting a dinner bill, or sending money home to family, cost is no longer a barrier. AEON saw that and realized Stellar's architecture was tailor-made for high-volume, low-cost economies. USDC integration that unlocks stable payments. One of AEON's top priorities? Stable, regulated, predictable value transfer. That's where Stellar's version of USDC comes in. Not only is it fully integrated with AEON Pay, it's also backed by Circle, regulated in the US, and rapidly becoming the de facto global stablecoin standard. That gives AEON the regulatory alignment they need without sacrificing decentralization or scalability. And with XLM acting as the liquidity layer in the background, users can easily swap, move, or spend with near zero friction. Global expansion already in motion. Here's what the skeptics don't realize. Southeast Asia is just the beginning. AEON is already plotting its next moves. Africa and Latin America. These aren't just geographic targets. They're high-potential, underbanked economies with hundreds of millions of people who've never had access to stable financial infrastructure. AEON's playbook is simple. Leapfrog banking, go straight to crypto and dominate. And they want Stellar powering it all. So zoom out for a second. This isn't just about a flashy partnership. This is Stellar being selected as the trusted backend for the global rollout of decentralized payments. And not by a DeFi project trying to game liquidity farming, but by a serious infrastructure player with actual boots on the ground. It's not just about QR codes and buying coffee. It's about building a permissionless payment backbone that can serve entire regions that traditional banks have abandoned. This is the kind of adoption that crypto was supposed to be about all along. And when you realize Stellar is sitting underneath it all, powering fast, cheap, borderless value transfers, you start to see what this means not just for the project, but for XLM's long-term relevance. This partnership is proof that Stellar's been playing the long game. While other chains chase hype, Stellar's been quietly building infrastructure, and now that groundwork is paying off. Because when a payment company like AEON bets on your network to serve tens of millions of people across entire continents, that's not a partnership. That's validation. And it's a huge green flag for anyone paying attention to fundamental signals, not just price pumps. From utility to adoption, how XLM and USDC just got supercharged. It's easy to get lost in crypto charts, speculation, and hype cycles. But here's the truth. Mass adoption doesn't come from tweets. It comes from utility, real-world, on-the-ground usage. And that's exactly what this AEON-Stellar partnership just unlocked. This isn't theoretical. This isn't years away. It's already happening. Let's break it down. The 5 pillars of adoption this move just triggered. 1. Retail integration that flips the script. The narrative around Stellar just changed overnight. People can now walk into millions of physical retail stores across Southeast Asia and spend XLM or USDC directly through AEON Pay. That means Stellar is no longer that fast blockchain you hold on KuCoin and forget about. It's now a currency. We're talking frictionless, bankless, tap-and-go spending, powered by decentralized rails. That's utility becoming reality. And that shift fundamentally revalues what XLM represents. From speculative asset to real-world medium of exchange. 2. Seamless merchant onboarding equals instant scale. Here's the genius in AEON's model. Merchants don't need to know a thing about crypto. No wallets, no seed phrases, no gas fees. AEON handles all the back-end complexity, abstracting it away with clean APIs and real-time conversion. That makes onboarding merchants as easy as signing up for Stripe or Square. It's this kind of no-friction UX that makes mainstream adoption not just possible, but inevitable. And when merchant volume starts to pour in, XLM demand rises with it. 3. Cross-border payments and remittances now with retail reach. Southeast Asia processes billions of dollars in remittances every year. Millions of families depend on cross-border payments to survive. Stellar already has enterprise corridors in places like Mexico, the Philippines, and beyond. But AEON takes that a step further by connecting those remittance flows to daily retail spend. Imagine a worker abroad sends money home using Stellar. Their family receives it in USDC or XLM, and instead of converting it at a bank, they spend it directly via AEON Pay. That's the loop. That's the complete utility stack from sender to receiver to point of sale. 4. Stablecoin utility in inflation-prone markets. Let's not overlook the stablecoin side of this. USDC on Stellar isn't just a bonus. It's a critical piece of financial infrastructure. AEON gives regulated, dollar-pegged USDC exposure in economies where fiat inflation eats away savings. This is especially huge in countries where banking is unstable, inaccessible, or predatory. Stellar is now offering a stable, spendable, and bankless dollar alternative. That's not just adoption. That's disruption. And while CBDCs are still in sandbox mode and pilot tests, Stellar and USDC are already live, delivering exactly what most CBDC projects only promise. 5. A global flywheel that's already spinning. This partnership isn't stopping at Southeast Asia. AEON has already laid out plans to expand its model into Africa, Latin America, and beyond. These are markets where mobile-first finance is already dominant, and where crypto-native payments have the most to offer. By choosing Stellar as one of its core networks, AEON is essentially planting XLM and USDC at the heart of emerging economies. And as adoption grows in one region, the network effect compounds, creating a flywheel of usage, liquidity, and demand. Let's call this what it is. Stellar didn't just get another integration. It became the financial backend for a new digital economy. XLM and USDC just graduated from crypto-native assets to globally spendable, usable, and scalable payment currencies. And this kind of narrative shift, it doesn't just sound bullish, it is bullish. Because price follows adoption. And adoption starts here. The price impact, why XLM is quietly positioning for a breakout. Alright, let's talk money. How does this partnership actually affect XLM's price? Because let's be real, utility is great, but you want to know when that utility turns into market action. And here's what you need to know. 1. Increased transactional demand. Every time someone uses XLM or USDC on AEON Pay, they're triggering an on-chain event. That means more throughput, more demand, and higher relevance in metrics tracked by institutional buyers. 2. Sticky users equals sticky liquidity. When users pay with XLM and merchants receive it, part of that flow gets locked into the ecosystem. Whether it's for float, treasury, or conversion, that creates passive holding behavior, reducing float on exchanges. 3. Stellar-integrated USDC becomes a payment standard. If Stellar USDC gains traction as a retail stablecoin, that brings more developers and payment platforms into the Stellar ecosystem, indirectly boosting XLM's usage as the fuel for those on-chain transactions. 4. Institutional accumulation starts quiet. This kind of news doesn't create a retail pump overnight. But what it does is activate by programs, DCA models, and infrastructure interest behind the scenes. Quiet accumulation tends to lead to explosive breakouts when the narrative catches up. 5. Chart lag versus utility lead. XLM's price may not have spiked yet, but it's now backed by a credible utility thesis. This setup often precedes a scenario where price explodes after utility reaches a tipping point. So while other projects are still trying to launch something, Stellar just dropped a live utility bomb across 20 million stores. The bottom line? Smart money is watching. And if you're smart, you should be too. Why this is just the beginning for Stellar, and why you should subscribe now. What Stellar just did with AEON isn't a one-off partnership. It's a blueprint for global payments at scale, and the implications stretch way beyond Southeast Asia. Remittances, with stablecoins and XLM being accepted at point of sale, Stellar is positioned to dominate end-to-end remittance loops, from sender to merchant. Merchant crypto adoption. AEON removes the technical barrier for merchants. They don't need to understand blockchain, they just need to accept QR payments. USDC as a universal retail stablecoin. If USDC on Stellar continues to grow in retail utility, it could compete head-on with CBDCs, and it's already live. Developer growth. More builders will start choosing Stellar because it now has real-world distribution rails in place. Price re-rating. XLM hasn't been priced for this kind of adoption yet. We're watching the early innings of something big, not just for Stellar but for crypto payments globally. So here's the move. If you're bullish on real adoption, real use cases, and the quiet players who end up winning, subscribe to Be Crypto Smart right now. We break these stories down before they trend, before price reacts, and before the herd notices. Because by the time they figure it out, you'll already be positioned. Hit subscribe, turn on notifications, and let's stay ahead of the curve.